Good morning. I'm going to rely on you guys to tell me if you can hear me, okay? So.
It's time to get informed and inspired. This is Saturday Morning Live,
Informed and
sponsored by
inspired.
Asset Advisors LLC
Like that.
and Linden Sheet Metal on KGMI, News Talk 790, 96.5 FM in Bellingham, and KGMI.com.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning Live. I am Becky Taylor and I am so happy that you have joined me this morning. Whether you are following me today live on Facebook or here listening live in the studio, I just want to welcome you first of all to the show this morning. And I love what the intro said, that hopefully this will be both inspiring, encouraging, and educational. And in the studio with me this morning, this is like so exciting. It's kind of it's a dream that I didn't even know I had, but my oldest daughter, Rachel Novak, is joining me in the studio today because this is a topic that has been deeply concerning to many people in our community and now very nationally. This story that we're going to be talking about has literally gone around the world, all the way over to the UK, publicized throughout the nation, very public on the news and in publication throughout the nation. So that's why I'm inviting our Facebook world to join us into this with this conversation as well. So welcome to the Facebook world streaming as well. And I hope you can hear me okay. I rely on you guys to tell me whether you can hear me there, because I know you can hear me on the radio. So, but if you want to follow us, just hashtag I am Becky or hashtag Rachel Novak, and her hashtag is hashtag SheEO, because my daughter is an executive business owner from down south of Whatcom County in Snohomish, and her and her husband have a very large team, and they are both professionals down there, but she also has 3 children. And the topic that we're going to be covering today is about this sex shop here in Bellingham, Washington, that the owner, Jen Mason, is going to be putting on classes coming up here in August for children ages 9 to 17, and it's going to be sex education classes. And so we're going to be talking about this in this show. We want to kind of set you up for what this is not. First of all, what this is not. It is not going to be throwing Jen Mason or even the shop under the bus, okay, and rolling over her at all. This is going to be having an educational and just from a different perspective conversation and asking questions, because we're hoping that you are kind of raising your eyebrows a little bit at a sex shop holding sex education for children. And you know, we're finding that people are split on this. Some people are like celebrating and thinking, this is great, this is wonderful, our kids need to be educated on these topics. And then others are like going, wait a minute, we've seen pictures of what this sex shop has in it, you know, on and what they promote and what they do, and look up wink wink on Instagram if you kind of want to know and surf through some of the photos and illustrations that are on there.
Well, and to play off of that, first of all, thank you so much, Mom, Becky, for bringing me into the studio with you this morning. This is a super hot topic for me as well, because I have 3 kids ages 7 to 13. So I'm right in that demographic of parent who has these kids having these conversations. And I want to be super clear, as Becky kind of mentioned, Mom mentioned, you know, we are not here to bash Jen Mason. In fact, I want to actually celebrate the freedom that she has in this country to be able to not only be a very highly accredited and educated academic, but she also owns a local business. And both of those things are big, big deals. And the fact that she lives in a country that allows her to do those things and allows her to put on these kinds of workshops is pretty incredible in and of itself. So the part that we're going to be really addressing is the fact that she is very, very openly and proudly political and politicizing these topics, and that she is utilizing the sexual education as social justice, right? And so I think that's the part that I really wanted to address, because It's not about the fact that she has this material that she's able to educate people. It's the audience with which she is targeting.
So that kind of sets the stage, and let me give you a little bit of bio, and that's important because she is highly educated, and she is also a president of a school board association here in the Bellingham area. And so being a president of a school board who also was very, very pro sex education for the children in kindergarten and such, and that's a whole nother topic in question about what kind of education. And my daughter actually had polled her children when Washington State was really grappling over the education of sex in the schools and the kind of and actually the books that were being chosen to be used. So she pulled her kids out of public school.
Correct.
And chose to go a different direction because she doesn't want other people teaching her children about sex. But
well, yeah, I mean, and I mean, before you get to kind of the bio and part of this setup is, you know, at the end of the day, this is all important information that kids need to know. Kids need to know the science of puberty. Kids need to know, you know, what a healthy relationship and a healthy friendship looks like. And 9 and 10-year-olds are just in the beginning of understanding what a healthy relationship looks like. And then, you know, this topic, this viewpoint is trying to inject sex or illicit information, right, adult content into a 9 or 10-year-old's brain as it's still developing into what relationships are.
Yeah.
So that's where I
we're
get a little spicy.
We're going to really get into that because, you know, Rachel being also an educated mother and self-educated in very many ways, and that's very proven in her life that is shown. She's going to talk a lot more about that in the developmental stages of children. So, but let's talk about Jen Mason a minute, about what makes her qualified to, you know, that she puts her qualifications out for this class. So she has a degree from WCSAP, and actually the degree is from a sex education. There's a university that and I can't, it's a sexology, it's called sexology, and she's got a degree from this particular university. But let me read from you the Washington Coalition of Sexual Assault Programs that she is the founder of, and
she's accredited.
She's accredited. Okay, she's accredited through that. So let me read just this bio because this really sets up the stage here for where we're at. So Jen Mason is the owner and founder of Wink Wink, an identity-inclusive, all-ages, not creepy sex shop in downtown Bellingham, Washington. With "Pleasure is Our Revolution" emblazed across the storefront. Wink Wink is unapologetically political, focusing on sexual pleasure as a social justice issue. And that is where we were welcomed into this conversation because she is literally unapologetically political, and she focuses on sexual pleasure as a social justice. So Rachel mentioned that social justice. And we, mother-daughter, are unashamed freedom fighters. And that's where Rachel celebrated the freedom that Jen has in America to be able to be a business owner, to be able to have a shop like this,
Absolutely.
and even hold classes. And so that's not really the question. Well, that is the question actually.
Well,
somewhat,
I mean, the hot topics that seriously is, and you know, we need to go to break here shortly, but is the audience. Is it necessary to bring this information directly to the 9-year-olds, or can we not equip their parents with this information to pass it on to their children?
And can you see why that will be the important topic of our conversation today? With that, we'll go for a break and we will be right back. All right, I love it when I get a step away and just talk to you guys. So first of all, for those of you that are watching, isn't that fun having Rachel on here today? Making sure, can you guys hear us both okay through the live stream here? So can somebody shout out for me and let us know that you can hear us well, first of all. So I kind of want to ask that. I'm seeing a bunch of thumbs up going on, so I'm hoping that's a yes, because I also have the yeah, good, thanks. Oh, okay, good. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. That's the feedback we needed. So you guys, feel free to share this. Like as you're watching this, share it to your wall. Share it. Okay. So get this out on your wall and and keep the word going. There's going to be a lot of valuable information that comes from this today. And I'll do my best to be able to come in and try to get, if you have questions or comments or something, I'll try to come in and read those too. But be sure and watch. And thanks, Carol and Karen and Elaine and Janet and Jan
Thanks for
and
being here, guys.
Joe.
Yay.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. I mean, honestly, the support literally means everything. So how are we doing on time on that?
Another ad after this.
Another ad, okay. All right, like to see Rachel a little better. Okay, thank you. Let's.
Hi.
Maybe she can come a little closer.
closer.
Yeah, we can snuggle it. Thanks. Thank you, honey. Oh, Kurt. Hi, Kurt. Oh, thank you. All the way from Iowa. Thank you so much. Jen is on the Bellingham School Board. Yeah, she is actually. She's been on the school board since 2017. Hey, Lisa, good to see you this morning. All right, we're about ready to come back in.
Perfect.
All right. And I'm going to go right into this here. We're going to talk about this topic about what is the Sexology Institute, and that she just got a degree from.
The opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of KGMI or the Cascade Radio Group.
And welcome back. And yes, indeed, and we're okay with that. The views and opinions expressed on this show this morning are not necessarily those of
Purely ours.
our KGMI radio station. They are purely ours, and so we're unashamed to be able to say that. So let's go into a little bit more backstory on Jen Mason and who she is.
And what she is trained to coach,
And
what she's trained to do.
And this is important, that she is trained to coach and what she is trained to do. So she also has a degree from an institute, and my thing cut off of what it is. It's a sexual training institute where they actually do educational programs for people that want to be trainers in sex education. And so there was an email sent out to this university, and the question was this, and I think this is really important to be able to cover this question.
Yeah.
So it was sent by an anonymous person. I don't want to give that person's name away who sent this email in. Hello, once a person is a certified sex coach, which Jen is there a specific age group that they are able to coach? For example, would this material prepare a person to coach children, adults, or both? And that was a great question that somebody was able to call in and ask. And this was the response from the director of operations at this institute. This is their answer. The Sexology Institute's sex coach training program, in which Jen is a certified training sex coach, it teaches the students of that school how to coach adults. While you will learn many things about sexuality in teens, our program doesn't teach how to coach minors in achieving their sexual goals. And we encourage our students to collaborate with therapists when handling anything outside their scope, such as that.
So the point in reading that is simply to say, anytime that, and obviously a lot of people are defending Jen's right to do this. And to be honest, I also agree with her right to do this. However, ethically speaking or morally speaking is not the same thing. If she is a certified sex coach from the Institute of Sexology, she is coached and she is trained to teach sexual education or, the science of puberty to adults. And so my point in all of this is, if I am the responsible mother of children in this age group, I am going to consistently take ownership over the information that my children receive and are exposed to. So yes, she has a right to teach these things, but is she condoned by the school and the training program which she actually has a degree? Is that condoning her being able to teach directly to 9 to 17-year-olds? No, according to the director of operations of that school. So I understand that her intent is good. Honestly, a lot of the parents that are bringing their children or involved in these kind of conversations, their intent is also good. They want more information for their kids. But let's be honest, you guys, as a mom of a 6-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old, my kids don't necessarily need to be exposed to illicit information, okay? What they need to do is to learn things. They need to be outside running. They need to be taught, some very close hand combat, jujitsu, like ways that they can actually interact with people if something's going down, and not be necessarily exposed to illicit information or see illicit things walking through a sex shop.
So now I know there was some, and again, there was some question about Jen posting on her Facebook wall and saying this is actually. So Rachel, can you pull those up? Get ready to read some points. I'm gonna let Rachel read just so I'm gonna give Jen a voice. And by the way, the number to the station is 360. There isn't an 800 number. Sorry for any of you. 360-676-KGMI. So if you're local and you'd like to call in, and if you have a question,
yes, please
call in. And if
participate
somebody
in this
knows Jen and Jen wants to call in and speak for herself, of course we welcome you to call in. We're two businesswomen here that if you want to call in and speak for yourself. We do have some quotes that were directly from her, so this is kind of giving her a voice. So like we said, we're not, Jen, this is not an anti-Jen if you're listening. This is what you have said, and so we're going to read a quote to like saying that this is actually what the class is. But then there is an Eventbrite invitation also to her classes, and then there's also a series of what is happening in the classes in the event. So for those of you that want to go and actually look at the event itself and maybe sign up your kids, what the cost is and all, it's all there. So Rachel, can you read, we got plenty of time, so if you want to read the what those are,
okay,
of what
from the Eventbrite,
from her Facebook wall that she put out. A lot of people are like, but this is really what she's teaching, and this is from her words herself. So go ahead, Rachel.
So what she's going to do is, of course, dispel some of the rumors going around, right? Because
there are
disinformation is kind of a buzzword, so there's a lot of disinformation, in her eyes in regards to what's actually happening in this class. So some of the things that she's kind of saying in regards to the headlines, right, from her Uncringe Academy, that parents are their kids' first teachers. We hope these conversations are happening at home, but we've also heard from lots of parents who aren't comfortable having these conversations, or their kids just won't listen to them. So my counterbalance to that is, if a 9 or 10-year-old isn't comfortable talking to their parent, do you think they're going to be comfortable in a room of strangers with multiple other adults and somebody that they've never met having these conversations? Or should those parents who don't feel comfortable maybe go to a class put on by Jen with only other adults in the room, because this can be illicit content if you're talking about sex or multiple sexual partners or all these things. Maybe the parents should go get comfortable first, in my opinion. Another counterbalance from these headlines and what she's talking about are lots of sex ed is based in shame and fear. Instead, we use a positive framework. Sexuality is a normal, healthy part of life and isn't supposed to feel degrading, painful, or abusive. Let's be perfectly clear. I agree with that. I completely agree with that. However, a 9-year-old, I'm not going to talk to my 9-year-old about how sex is healthy and normal, because when you're bringing it up to a young child, when their brain is still developing, they're taking that, and the normalization of this information is essentially weaponizing them to understand that this is normal. And if I'm having a conversation with mom about it right now, then at 12 years later to them, when we look at them as still a child, for them it feels normal. Why are we normalizing that so young? That's my point. Another one is, we should question why it's so concerning for kids to learn that sexuality is supposed to be a healthy and good part of their life. This is a spin. What are we teaching when we keep it a secret or teach from shame? There is absolutely no reason to teach from shame. There is absolutely no reason to keep it a secret at all. But let's equip the parents of these kids to broach these conversations. And when that child is old enough, mature enough, emotionally mature enough to understand these concepts and actually apply it, once they've actually established friendships, once they've actually gone through situations of peer pressure, and then we can have conversations with the more mature, older teenager or consensual adult at 18 years old about these topics.
Mhm.
I think that was the last one in regards to some of these headlines, but you know, when we're, okay.
All right, so now we want to pull up. So this was her response to some of the, more, or defense to some of the more conspiracy type of topics, because it's caused a lot of parents like myself and my daughter to kind of go, whoa, wait, hello, wait, what's going on here? But now let's go to the Eventbrite. So let's go to the actual invitation of where this is describing. So it's a little bit different than what she would then follow up with, which, I'm sorry, I'll call it what it is because I'm okay with doing that. I think was a little bit of gaslighting on those responses based on what the actual event says it is. And, I checked and that hasn't been, this conversation hasn't been changed yet. Okay. So, that's okay. Well, you keep pulling that up because it's on there somewhere. So she's going to pull up the actual event. It's the event itself. So based on Jen's criteria, and you know what? This is perfect timing. Perfect timing. We have a break coming up, and we'll be right back because we're going to complete this conversation.
Hey, there is Lars Larson
Perfect.
for Asset
So
Advisors.
we need to
The last few months have been
bring in
challenging
the
deals,
unintended
great
consequences.
opportunity. Wealth advisors did
Yeah,
commit
right
with
after
asset
that.
advisors
So
and
we'll
busy assisting
click
their
on it.
clients
Send me the link 'cause I
looking
can't
forward to
find
the
it.
future. 5 years ago, they started down the path of change by joining Carson
This
Group
is a good
as a
long
partner.
stretch, and then
This
we have
path
one
has
more
now
long, so
led
this
them
is
to
perfect.
becoming fee-based advisors, putting them on
Thank you,
a
guys.
path with their clients.
All right.
Fees based on the value
Thanks
of the
for
vehicles they
watching
manage,
this
not
morning,
selling
and
high
any
commission products.
questions
They
or
feel
comments, you
like
guys.
you.
Thank you for sharing this and
Call
having
them
it
733-12.
go out. Can you see why this is such an important conversation? Oh, for sure. My goodness. And you guys, if you're having problems hearing this at all, you can pop over to kgmi.com and just click the listen live, because we are saying, oh, love you, Randy. Oh, Kindred. Oh, PJ. Oh my goodness. Good morning. Hey, this is a big topic, PJ. You might want to listen on the rest of this one. Good to see you. Oh, I love my people.
With this is Mark Myden from Capstone Physical Therapy.
Did I
Winner of
text,
Best
is
in
it
the
on a
Northwest.
picture I
Mark, I
text
understand
you?
you've been a hand
Did
therapy
I send you
specialist for
the
over
actual
25
event?
years. What exactly does a hand therapist do?
Our hands are critical to daily life, and when
Did
they
you go
get
check
injured from
Messenger?
trauma or
Facebook
overuse,
Messenger.
our quality of life is affected. I work with doctors and surgeons to maximize hand recovery and get people back to life and the activities they enjoy most.
What types of injuries do you treat?
I've helped thousands of patients with tendinitis, sprains, fractures, dislocations, arthritis, basically anything
And
that leads to
let's,
hand pain or dysfunction.
Any tips
Let's
for our
emphasize
listeners?
what
If
it's
you're
called,
experiencing hand or wrist
Cringe
pain or loss of
Total
function,
Academy.
seek attention.
Which I mean,
And what to do can be done.
Capstone
Trying to be cringe less, not cringe worthy, right?
well, it's exactly. I mean, they're like, our point is to have, like, be able to have hard conversations, which I totally respect, right? Like, that's a,
Because
that's
Right. That's hard.
you enjoy most. In the shop.
Good, thanks, Randy. Oh, Randy's saying hi, Rich.
a, good morning.
Hey, Iris. Good to see you. Oh, PJ, yes.
Kurt from Angler. Brian
Thanks for
from
clarifying these issues. Love you too, PJ.
Burlington Automotive.
He was in having
Yeah, PJ says, love you both.
they offered him more than he paid for the thing.
9 to
Oh, goodness. Yeah,
on
love your hearts.
KGMI
Oh.
News Talk 790, 96.5 FM.
Alice, thank you, Alice. Bless your heart. Oh,
Latest local
love you
news and
too.
important topics of the day from the
I'm
West
hoping I
Michigan
didn't miss anything or any questions.
Summer days and nights. Turn your
Um,
home into a sauna? Contact West
Yeah, as president of the Bellingham School District, isn't this a conflict of interest? The president's personal private business hosting sex therapy courses to a captive audience of students.
You think?
You think? I mean, that actually, I can actually say, I'd like to read that comment. That's a good comment to open with. Okay.
Another way to tell.
Huh?
Another way to tell when we're going on the air is just light goes on.
Oh, it's so right when light goes on, I can talk.
Yeah.
Oh, well, after almost a year. Well, thank you, Matt.
Is that what that's for?
I was like, stop. It's bad. I know. Live studio, you guys. So, sorry we kind of have to have these side conversations, but Thanks for joining us. I mean, I know it's you know, sometimes can be a long hour for you guys because you're not hearing the commercials that are on right now. I could turn it up, but then you guys wouldn't hear our chatter. The only time I'm going to turn the, you know, what we're hearing on the commercials up is if somebody calls in. So I want you guys to be able to hear the call in. What's that? On 10. On 10. Here we go.
This continues mask mandates could go up again. CBS News brief.
Read that comment and then I'll read the Eventbrite bullet points.
Is that?
I'll read the Eventbrite bullet points after you read that comment.
All right, welcome back to KGMI Saturday Morning Live. My name is Becky Taylor, in case you're joining us just now, and I am in studio with my oldest daughter, Rachel Novak,
Good morning.
and we are having a pretty spicy conversation about a very publicized studio sex shop in Bellingham, Washington, with an owner of the sex shop who is also a school board president in the Bellingham School District. And I have a very good question from a listener on Facebook. Isn't this a conflict of interest to have the president's personal private business hosting sex therapy courses for a captive audience of minor students? That is that's a great question.
It is a great question. And we right before the break, we talked a little bit about you know, some of the you called it gaslighting, but some of the rumors or the misinformation or disinformation that Jen Mason was trying to dispel with this shop and with these workshops that she's putting on. And to be totally clear, like, I think you and I both agree that there are parts of this that are very valuable. The fact that she is trained to coach adults on sex education and the science of puberty allows her to be a very incredible source and resource in this community to be able to equip parents and adults on how to have these hard conversations with their children, especially if those parents are not comfortable with it. So we're now countering that with what the actual Eventbrite event says. These are some of the things that she said, that the workshops are divided by age and presentation of topics will vary for developmental appropriateness. That's all good. I would also counter in this age group that having boys and girls learn about each other's anatomy in the same room. Trust me, I was a 5th grader learning about anatomy in a group of girls, about girl anatomy, and it was awkward enough, let alone learning about, you know, boy parts. So topics covered, she says, topics covered in this 2-day workshop may include healthy relationships and relationship models. Awesome. The science of puberty. Great. Consent and communication. Gender and sexual identities. Sexual anatomy for pleasure and reproduction. What is sex? Kinds of solo and partnered sexual activities. Safer sex practices for all kinds of sexual activities. And the ethics and realities of sexualized media and pornography. So let's be perfectly clear. This is illicit information. I almost felt uncomfortable how many times I just said sex on live radio air, okay? So if it, like, and to her credit, calling this the Uncringe Academy, it is very fitting because this can be a cringeworthy topic.
How many of you just cringed listening
Yeah.
to that? Now, so this is what my point was of why I wanted to show you that. This isn't our words. We're not, so far, the definitions that we've read are nothing that we're not making this up, and we're not embellishing anything. We didn't have to embellish that, right? At all. All we had to do was read her own Eventbrite, what this event is. So do you find a little contrast between what we just read, and then at the bottom it says between $5 and $50 per person? So they want to be able to make it affordable for everybody that can come. In case they can't afford it, then give us $5, but if you can, please give us $50. That's okay. She's a businesswoman, so you know she wants to exchange money for time.
Cover her costs for staffing and
Or whatever. That's totally fine. That's not the point of the money, but the point is that was the agenda inside the actual invitation. And yet when you go read what she wrote and people are posting, but this is what she says it's going to be. Which is it?
It's contradictory.
Which is it?
Well, and truly, like, what is the point? You know, they talk about the point being so kids can have healthy relationships with their bodies and understand healthy relationships and understand, you know, each other or understand what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. And I think the intent, again, is probably really good. Like, the intent is to make sure that people understand what a healthy relationship looks like, so to possibly avoid sexual assault or grooming or any sort of relationship that might be inappropriate. But what this is, the unintended consequences of what are happening with these kind of workshops and this kind of material is that it is lowering the inhibitions of these children to understand and normalize these types of behaviors, which in turn is going to normalize that behavior at a much younger age. So my question for Jen Mason and for anybody who supports this type of subject with this type of audience is, what is the point? Because if there's something that I know and I've learned is that where focus goes, energy flows.
Now this is where I want Rachel to just keep going here, because pause a minute. Rachel has a business or a podcast that she started, and she actually is the founder of SheEO. So when she's talking about these kind of hard conversations, I mean, she's coming from a well-spoken person. So this is really the unintended consequences of life, of all kinds of things. But right now we're talking about the unintended consequences of what this is happening to children and the developmental ages of them, because she deals with a lot of young moms who are SheEOs as well. I'm a SheEO, I just happen to be a grandma EO, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so go ahead, keep going on that thought. I just wanted to emphasize that.
Well, I want to bring everybody back for a second, because, you know, I would what we consider a millennial, right? Like, I consider myself a geriatric millennial, because really I'm like an 80-year-old brain in, you know, millennial body, almost 40 body.
Always has been an old soul.
For sure. So if I know that where energy or where focus goes, energy flows, let's bring it back for a second to the DARE program in the 1990s. Does anybody remember the DARE program? Dare to resist. What did they do? They talked all about how marijuana and all these lower level drugs were the gateway drugs to heavier things. Well, I didn't know anything about drugs until the DARE program. And all of a sudden you have an entire generation of people who learned all about drugs and all about the gateway, and you basically drop the inhibitions and normalize these things, that these things are happening. And then now, 25 years later, we have an entire generation of people, and we have fentanyl, opioid crisis. We've got tons of people on drugs. And I'm not saying that the DARE program is directly connected to this, but what it did was it rose awareness to a young group of people to normalize that mentality at a young age. How is this any different than that? Wouldn't it logically say that if you're bringing this information to 9-year-olds who this isn't even on their spectrum, this isn't even in their brain at all, they're still learning what friends are, they're still learning social dynamics and how to be a leader or how to be a follower or how to not give in to peer pressure if you don't want to do something, right?
And that even is tough for a 9-year-old. I mean, imagine that is difficult to do that. I was out doing powder puff motocross at 9 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I was out riding motorcycles and like having my mom go, I'm going to bring you to this little shop that has a secret entrance in the back so you don't see all the sex toys as you're walking through the store, which it is not age appropriate. It just happens to be for all ages, so they're okay with any ages seeing that. We'll put you through the back door, and we're gonna go learn about sex for the next 2 days.
Well, and back to like, what is the point? Like, if their intent is to raise awareness and to teach children about healthy relationships and healthy dynamics, I'm actually in agreement with that. But the unintended consequences of doing that with this young of children is that you are going to weaponize and create mini social justice warriors in this younger generation. And that is not an appropriate way to recruit for your political side. And if Jen Mason is openly and unabashedly political and making this a social justice topic, then how would it not logically make sense that she and the people who are in agreement with her are simply trying to recruit young kids to a political affiliation at a very young age, which in my opinion is not freedom. It is absolutely not how we create open-minded, independent thinkers in this country.
And for those of you that might not have heard, let me reframe or re-say again what is written on Jen Mason's bio, basically. is that that she owns an identity inclusive, all ages, not creepy sex shop in Bellingham. And this is here with "Pleasure is our revolution" blazed across the storefront. And "Wink Wink" is unapologetically political. I'm sorry, I had to pause. Pause
That's
and think.
perfect.
That's pause and think. Focusing on pleasure as a social justice issue. Rachel said a word, and she said it once, and I'm going to say it again. Weaponizing our children. Rachel, would you kind of embellish that a little bit? Because I think this is, and she did kind of round about this, but I want you guys, parents, grandparents, and even those of you that may be in support of this, like, this is okay, this is fine, and I endorse this. I just want you just to pause, like a power pause for a moment, and just kind of let this digest about weaponizing and the unintended consequences of how this could be weaponizing the children. Talk about that a little bit more, Rachel, because
Absolutely.
I just feel like that was a powerful point, and how this is shaping. Weaponizing means shaping.
Yes.
And now we're talking politically. She's like politically.
Well, and let's be super clear. This is not a political subject, other than Jen Mason has brought sexual pleasure to the forefront and is unabashedly political about this, creating as a social justice issue. And there are things that I completely agree with Jen Mason on. For instance, sex shops for adults, why not? Sex in general for non-reproductive purposes, why not? In consensual adult relationships. However, bringing this into 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, even up to 17-year-olds, you are creating a generation of people who know nothing other than this is what is normal. And you're teaching them that normal sexual behaviors are fluid, right? Like, and I think the most concerning points in some of the Eventbrite points were, you know, multiple partners, partner sex, what is sex? Sex isn't the same to everybody. Wouldn't this just confuse a 9 or 10-year-old even more than they already would be?
Well, even a 12, 13, 14-year-old. We're not even, that's when kids are out there, you know, they're like, their hormones are flying, right? And they're like feeling these different attractions, and that's all legit, that's real stuff. And you just kind of put yourself back in your own 14-year-old or 15-year-old or 16-year-old hormonal body, and remember that you really were you naive, and you think knowing more or seeing a full-blown like illustration of a male part or a female part would cause you to be a little more curious yourself or stir something up inside. So there is an education that maybe needs to happen. And with that, we're going to go on a break, and this always goes so fast. We only have one more segment left, and we'll see you when we come back.
Question for the segment?
Was that?
I'm just reading the list.
Oh, yeah.
The only Subaru
I don't think
certified
it's
tire
necessary
service
to talk about.
Okay, so
is community-minded, community-driven, and proud to sponsor
this is our last one. It's a longer segment as well, so we got a good 12 minutes to go over this. So, my two gorgeous, strong, patriotic women. Oh, Mike, you're so sweet. Your husband.
Love you, honey.
You're the best. My
Well,
son-in-law.
and what I really would like to, like,
If you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing. Yes, that's really, you know what, such a good, Kurt, that's such a great comment. And they know these seeds grow, an infection and weeds to corrupt the fields. You know, they're truly the fields of their lives. And actually, this is a good point that I think I'm gonna at least throw this point out. There is one of our state candidates running for the 42nd district, which is a pretty big run right now for senator, is Shoemake, and I think she's already in. And she was, Jen held fundraisers for her because this senator was all about that early sex education. And so, go ahead.
To the point of the weaponizing, like
Did you already cover it, or do you want to cover it? I'd love to still
Yeah, I was
there's
kind of trying to
more
like
say.
put it together without, because I think like talking about like politicizing sex, normalizing it, what they're doing is normalizing the conversations with strangers.
That's the
That's
weapon.
what I was-
That's the point. Okay. Without going into the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'd like to encourage her to teach and equip parents.
Yes. Well, that's our.
Let's keep this event.
So
let's make
and
it
some
adults
and
only.
Carol said exactly,
Oh,
Rachel. You hit the nail on the head. In other words, grooming is their agenda, even though it's maybe not her
I'm
intent.
not gonna, yeah, I'm
That
not,
is-
yeah, but yes,
There's a consequence there.
yes,
So
that's an unintended consequence,
that is
exactly.
one of the unintended consequences is from getting people familiar and comfortable. Okay. All right, welcome back. We are back from the break, and this is our last little segment. So, we're going to try to wrap this up and hopefully end on a happy note, a call to action, and some thoughts for you parents or people locally. We know this isn't happening, this particular event isn't happening around the nation right now, but it went national. So that's why we're bringing, you into this that are streaming live on Facebook right now, because it is a big conversation and you might have heard about it. And because it happens to be in my town and you're my friends watching and Rachel's friends watching, that's why we're talking about it here on Facebook with you. So, but for those of you listening here locally, we you know what we're talking about. We're really getting into this unintended consequences right now, at least of how this is really kind of weaponizing our children and grooming, without saying the whole unintentionally grooming a child between 9, 13, 14, 15, even in that range, to be comfortable talking about sex and their body parts and in intimate activities with strangers.
That's the key here, because again, I've said multiple times throughout this show that I agree with a lot of what Jen's intents are with these workshops, and I agree with getting information out there, and especially to parents who may not be comfortable having these conversations or know exactly how to speak to their kids in a way that they may understand them in an age appropriate way. So while I'm not saying that this event is bad, I'm not saying that the content even is bad. What I'm saying is the audience is inappropriate. It's important to get this information out and to equip the parents. And to Jen's credit, for 10 years I believe she ran a program dealing with sexual trauma victims and working through creating curriculum and creating programs that help people through kind of trauma. So I understand her intent of wanting to get in front of those things because she saw the result of trauma and assault. She wants to get in front of it. But as we all know, the way to get in front of children in their developmental age and teach them things is to equip their parents. And I think so many millennial parents especially are so much more worried about being friends with their kids and being liked by their kids that they are afraid to have conversations, and they are not taking ownership over giving this information directly to their children, even if it is uncomfortable. They are now utilizing other resources like Jen to have these conversations, but the unintended consequences of bringing them into an environment of strangers and bringing them into an environment to have these conversations with people that they don't know and have never met in an environment that they've never been in that is probably inappropriate, even if there aren't any examples or toys or props that they utilize to explain these things. There's going to need to be something. There's going to need to be graphs or pictures or something to help understand the science of puberty. And so if the parents are going into this environment and learning these things, they can then be equipped to have these conversations. But bringing children in, the unintended consequences of that, like I mentioned earlier, is lowering the inhibitions. It's normalizing the conversation around sex at a very young age, inappropriately young age, and it's politicizing it. And she openly says she's politicizing it for social justice. So if a 9-year-old child understands that subconsciously, my mom is condoning me having a conversation in a room full of strangers about anatomy, about consensual sex, about all these things, and then also teaching, like, I could be something different. I could choose to be a different gender. I could choose to do something else with my body. I could choose to have multiple partners. This is very confusing. As a 9-year-old, they're not going to know where to put that, and it's going to be locked in the subconscious for quite a while. And so coming up into the teenage years, when they do want to have a healthy relationship, it's going to be quite confusing having all of these details come back up. So while these emotionally immature children are still learning social dynamics and understanding relationships and relationships with strangers and people who they trust in their lives, this is not the time to introduce this crazy, wild, illicit subject, right? Because subconsciously that's going to come up later. And like there's been a couple of comments, I mean, essentially they're recruiting into a political affiliation and having a bias toward these conversations when at 9 years old, that is not necessary. And in my opinion, normalizing it and inhibiting it is going to get them into more trouble personally later on. Would you agree?
I agree completely. And somebody said on Facebook, they were talking about how, you know, is this actually going to bring a division, you know, between the parent, the kids going, well, this person I can talk to, but because I'm listening to this person, I'm not going to be able to talk to my parents. You've just kind of just separated yourself as a parent from your child by handling probably the most sensitive subject inside of their little world and their future, letting a stranger introduce this to them. Now, mind you, there are these parents that are so afraid of this that they just freeze up. That's why they uncringe. They cringe at the thought of having to talk to their children about it. So they learn about it on the playground, and you know. And how many of you in my age group, you know, and this 60s and 60 something ages that you're like, well, my parents didn't talk about sex, and I learned about it on the playground. I mean, that is something that's really legitimate. And I can see the motive of Jen going, let's educate and talk about, have these conversations. But remember at the beginning of the show when we read the credentials of the school that she claims that qualifies her, the school operations manager themselves said they are not equipped as that result to teach. Get a therapist in the room. They are equipped to teach adults.
Exactly.
And
and you know, to Jen's you know, credit again, you know, because she is an academic and she's learned all these things and she's been trained in how to have these conversations and how to bring it to age appropriate terminology and being able to pass this on. Target the parents. There's obviously parents that are interested in passing this information on to their kids. So target the parents. Teach the parents what signs of assault or, you know, sexual grooming looks like or on their young child. Teach them how to approach the subject and how to bring it up in an age-appropriate way. Why are we getting a bunch of kids together who are strangers into a room full of strange adults in a strange environment to talk about something that really the parents should be taking ownership over in their own families?
That is exactly right. So my, you know, appeal and opening this whole conversation for you all. And so I hope for some of you that, you know, aren't listening, that are not local, that this little, I would say this event is maybe not affecting directly because it's not in your own little community, but you're listening to this streaming, and I know you're from all over the nation right now listening because you're on Facebook streaming, and some of you just know that this is here. We're first of all gonna expose as a 2-generational parents here to maybe it's time to really start thinking about how you yourself as a parent are going to take the responsibility to step up to the table and learn how to, if you don't know, you know what, guess what? The information world and the web of information is vast, and there are good, healthy, beneficial tools and materials to be able to get and be able to teach. And I actually had my investigative friends looking for materials for me to be able to give for you today, and we weren't able to come up with anything because we only knew we were going to do this show as of early morning yesterday. So we don't have that kind of material to give you, but I promise you it's out there in very many good, wholesome ways.
Well, and Jen can give it to us, right? And, you know, somebody called in and asked, are parents allowed to attend? And absolutely, they're encouraged to attend, which furthers my point. So if it's uncringe for us, right, the Uncringe Academy for us to learn about these things to pass on to our children, we absolutely should be going to that first and gathering that information to be able to bring. You know, kids' brains can't tell the difference between endorphins from a compliment in person or endorphins from a like on social media. Do you think that they're going to be able to differentiate in their subconscious information from a stranger or grooming behavior from a stranger? Won't that feel the same to them, right? Mm-hmm. So our real goal with all of this is simply to get parents to wake up. Wake up. Mm-hmm. It is our responsibility as millennial parents or as parents in this society with children growing up in this world to filter the information that is necessary for them And I'm not saying that we're going to filter it politically. I'm not saying that we're going to filter it one way, left, right, middle, center, independent, blue, green, whatever. I am saying it is our job to make sure that our children do not grow up so fast that they don't even have an opportunity to be children. If we're forcing information or bringing them into an environment where they're getting adult illicit information at a young age, how is that improving their childhood?
Right? And if you're the kind of parent that keeps your child, and I have, well, it used to be all three of these grandchildren, and I do have 3 grandchildren that are in jujitsu, which is a full-on self-confidence, self-defense program. You guys, if you want your kids to be confident little humans, get them involved in something that will make them confident. You think, I'm sorry, here's a rant. I'm sorry, not sorry. If you think that you can just send your kids to a sex shop and have them equipped, hello.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where's the ownership? Where is the ownership? If you are outsourcing the information from somebody else directly to your child, you are outsourcing that, and you are completely deflecting the ownership of the education of your own child.
So, our plea to you and Jen Mason today. Jen, can you maybe just shift and adjust and turn this into a parent program instead of a child program? We're going to just make a little plea. I doubt you will. You're going to do what you're going to do, and that's okay, because we live in a freedom to do it. Yes, freedom in America to do that. But parents, maybe you can go to the class instead of send your kids. Maybe that's an option as well. So just to think about that, or attend with them at best, but still the exposure is there. We are coming to the end of the hour. I just want to say thank you. I am here to bring hope to your heart, to your life, and I want to encourage you all that I believe with all my heart America will be saved. We're bringing light to this world, and we're glad you're here doing it with us. See y'all. You guys, that was great. Thank you so much. There's so many of you that just hung with us throughout the whole thing. So from mother, daughter, thank you guys so much for joining us. Yes, Kurt, isn't she amazing? I know.
Oh,
she
you guys are awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for hanging out. My goodness.
Yeah, you
This
guys
is awesome.
literally hung in there with us the whole show, and it's kind of a different way to do this, but thank you so much, Randy and Pam and Elaine and Kurt, man.
Thank you guys so much.
You just make you make this worthwhile. Tara, bless your heart. Good to see you. So anyway, yes, be the light. All right, you guys, we're gonna turn this off, and we'll see you again next time. Okay, love y'all. Mwah. God bless you.